Hello everyone and welcome back to Jacklet Educational Channel. So in this video we are going to discuss about the important topic and questions related to ecology and evolution. So these questions are taken from the previous year's question of GATE Ecology and Evolution paper. So it will be very interesting. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So this is the third part in the series in which we are dealing with the GATE Ecology and Evolution paper. If you haven't checked the previous lessons, you can check the link given in the description below. So the first question is the Darwin's idea on evolution by natural selection were influenced by which of the following scientists? So it is related to Darwin's idea. So you have to select the correct option. And here the correct option will be option number A. Yes, Darwin's idea on evolution by the natural selection was influenced by Lyell and Malthus. So how? Because Lyell's observations that gradual processes shape the earth influenced Darwin to believe that over time life forms could also gradually change. Similarly, in the case of Malthus, it inspired Darwin's idea of the survival of the fittest. So in these two ways, Darwin was influenced by these two scientists. So let's move to the next question. The second question is, which of the following statements about the evolution of humans is believed to be true? So ये कौन सा statement जो है true है about the evolution of humans? And here the correct option will be option number B. Yes, this statement, that is modern day humans and the Neanderthals shared a recent common ancestor, is very true. And according to this statement, what happens is the common ancestor is known as Homo heidelbergensis. So you should note it down. Homo heidelbergensis is believed to be the common ancestor of modern day humans and Neanderthals. So the third question is, on an average, which ecosystem has the lowest net primary productivity per unit area? So here we have to know net primary productivity is denoted as NPP. And here the correct option will be option number A. Yes, open ocean is having the lowest net primary productivity per unit area as compared to all these three. So we'll know all this in deep. So let's move to the next slide. So this chart, this graph shows the type of ecosystem and with the average net primary productivity. So here you can see estuaries are having the highest net primary productivity, followed by swamps and marshes, tropical rainforest, temperate forest, northern coniferous forest which are taigas, then followed by savannas, agriculture land, woodland and shrubland, temperate grasslands, lakes and streams, continental shelf, tundra which is considering Arctic and Alpine both tundras, and then comes the open ocean. So why this is having the lowest, I will tell you, the give you a hint, because we all know the oceans cover more than 70% of the Earth's total land. So here in this question it was asked the ecosystem which is having the least net primary productivity per unit area. So if the area is more in the denominator, that means ocean is having the maximum area. So if maximum is in the denominator, then obviously the whole value will be very less. So in this way you can also use your common sense. So finally the desert and extreme desert accompany the least net primary productivity among all these ecosystems. So try to note it down. Let's move to the next question. So the question is, a researcher measures the height of 100 trees of a particular species and the mean of these observations is found to be 50 and the variance is found to be 16. So the question asks the standard error of the mean is how much. So we have to calculate it and let's see how to find the solution. So first we will write what we have to find out in this question. So हमें यहाँ पे standard error निकालना है. So we will denote it as SE. So we have to find SE is how much. So to know that, we have to know that standard error, the formula is very simple. It is standard deviation divided by root over of n. So here n means the number of samples taken. So as you have known the formula, now we have to know one more concept in statistics, that is standard deviation is denoted as the square root of the variance given. So this is also important to solve this question. So now we have the variance. So from variance, we will get the standard deviation. How? Let's see. By doing this, standard deviation is equal to root over of variance, which is given as 16 here. So root over of 16 is equal to 4. So we got the standard deviation. So here we will simply put the values. So standard error is equal to standard deviation we have got, that is equal to 4. So 4 divided by root over of n. So here n means number of samples or observations. So 100 trees were taken. So n will be 100. So root over of 100. So it is not clear. I have to erase it all. So let me write once again. Standard error is equal to 4 divided by root over of 100 is equal to 4 divided by 10, because root over of 100 is 10. So here it will be 10. So after that, it is very simple. The answer will be 0.4. That is the standard error of the mean of this observation. So it is very simple. You know the formula. You can calculate the answer. So let's move to the next question. So the next question is, a researcher tested for the presence of parasitic infection in 100 male and 100 female deer. 40 males and 30 females were found to be infected, and the question asked to test if males are significantly more susceptible to infection than females. Which of the following is an appropriate statistical test? So these four tests are given, and you have to find which is the appropriate statistical test to find this infection susceptibility. So here you should know that here no need to calculate anything, just we have to know the concept. So here the correct option will be option number C. We have to do the chi-square test to find the significant of the males more susceptible to the infection than females or not, because we know this chi-square test is also known as that to test the goodness of fit. So you should note everywhere that test the goodness of fit, chi-square test is used. And the next thing is, here we should know that chi-square test will be used because here observed value is given and we have to find the expected value, then we can calculate the values. So the option number C will be the correct option. Let's move to the next question. So the sixth question is, the frequency of the dominant allele R in a population of diploid organisms is equal to the frequency of recessive white allele small r. So the frequency of red individuals assuming Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium will be, wow, how much? So this is related to Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, and we have done last two part on these two things, that is Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. We have done the numericals. So if you haven't checked, you can check. From there you can get the idea. But now let's see how to solve this question. So here you should know that here it is given that the frequency of dominant allele, that is here it is given dominant red allele, you should note it here, it is equal to the frequency of recessive white allele. So according to the Hardy-Weinberg law, the frequency of dominant allele is denoted as small p and frequency of recessive allele is denoted as small q. So here as per the question, it will be p is equal to q. Then what we have to do? We know one more thing according to the Hardy-Weinberg law, that is p plus q is equal to 1. So as here p is equal to q and p plus q is equal to 1, then if you solve, we will get that small p is equal to 0.5 and small q is equal to 0.5. So it is very simple. I hope till now you have understood. Next thing is, what is this? These two things are, p is equal to 0.5 gives the frequency of dominant allele, q is equal to 0.5 gives the frequency of recessive allele. Now we have to find the frequency of individuals. So these are the frequency of allele, but now we have to find the frequency of the individuals. So to calculate the frequency of the individuals, one more formula is there in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, that is p square plus 2pq plus q square is equal to 1. So that is very easy, because by solving the p plus q whole square is equal to, this will be the formula. So now what we have to know from here, this p square means it is telling the frequency of the homozygous dominant individual. This q square is telling the frequency of homozygous recessive individual, and this part is telling the frequency of heterozygous dominant individual, because heterozygous means, hetero means different, so here p and q both allele are used, so that is for the heterozygous individual which are dominant. Now we have to find the frequency of red individual. So as per the question here, red is the dominant allele. So we have to find the frequency of red individual. That means we have to find this one because red is dominant. So it will be seen in the morphology in case of p square. Along with that, we have to calculate the 2pq also. Why? Because this will also show the red morphology because it is the heterozygous dominant. So p is present, so it will show its morphological feature, that is red color. So these two if we are adding, calculating, then we will get the answer. So how we will get? We have got p square is equal to 0.5, so we'll write it here. P is equal to 0.5 whole square plus 2 multiplied by, so here it is 2 multiplied by 0.5 is equal to p, and q is also 0.5 we have calculated. So after solving these, we will get the value as 0.75. So this is our answer, that is the frequency of red individuals in this population assuming the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is 0.75. So in this way simply you can solve any question. So let's go to the next question. So let's read the seventh question. The seventh question is, two sympatric species of fruit flies congregate on the fruit of the two closely related species of trees for mating. So for mating, these two flies have congregated of these two species. The cue most likely to be used by this fly species to locate their mates from a long distance would be what? So what cue they should use to locate their mates from a long distance? So you should mark here, it is given long distance. So here the correct option will be option number B. Yes, from long distance they can only use one thing, that is the use of smell. So with the help of scent of the fruit they can identify their mates, but with long distance they can't see the shape of the fruit, they can't see the color of the male flies, and also the shape of the flowers. So with long distance they can only observe the scent of the fruit. So these are some of the common sense question which is very easy to understand, and if you are understanding it well, you can get the correct answer and correct marks. So let's move to the next question. So this question number 8 is having several number as you can see on the screen, but no need of this number. We will simply solve this with the help of common sense. So question, let us read us first. The question is, human activities release about 7 to 10 to the power 15 gram of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. Of these value, about 3 into 10 to the power 15 gram accumulates in the atmosphere. Another 2 into 10 to the power 15 gram of the carbon dioxide is absorbed by the oceans. The remaining 2 into 10 to the power 15 gram enters the missing carbon sink. So the question is, this sink is best explained by which of the following options? So read all the options carefully first, then I will tell the correct answer. So here the correct option will be option number B. Yes, let us read all this option by eliminating one by one. So this is asking about the sink, that is the carbon sink. So you should know two things are there. What is, one thing is source, that is the carbon from where it is released, and sink is the carbon where it goes to. So the carbon dioxide जहाँ पे deposit होता है, that is known as sink. So here in this question it is asking about the sink. So in the first option it is given that CO2 escapes into the outer space from the upper regions of the atmosphere. So this is talking about the source, not the sink. So as it is escaping, so it is released. Next, option number C, it was telling that cement production from limestone deposits. So in the production of cement, carbon dioxide is released. So it is also the example of source, not the sink. Next, option D, it was telling increased temperature due to the greenhouse effect. So this is telling the effect of the carbon dioxide when it is present in the atmosphere. So it is leading to the greenhouse effect. But the next thing which is present is the option number B. It says that plants increase their photosynthetic rate in a carbon dioxide rich environment. So that means when there is carbon dioxide, it is maximum or it is more in the environment, then plants utilize them. So they are the sink of the carbon dioxide. So that's why this statement explains about the sink very significantly. So in this way we can answer the question very easily by using our common sense. So let's move to the ninth question. So the ninth question is, the phenotypic plasticity refers to what? So read all the options carefully. And here the correct option will be option number B. Yes, this terminology, that is phenotypic plasticity, refers to the same genotype producing different phenotypes in the different environments. So as per the change in the environment, so that can be temperature, light, or response to the predator, the same individual with the same genotype will be having different morphological forms or phenotypes. So let's take an example of the phenotypic plasticity. So as you can see, these are the examples of the honeybees, and here how they are showing the phenotypic plasticity. As you can see, their morphology is different, very different from each other. So the queen bee is having the different morphology because its environment is different, because it is always present inside the beehive. And similarly, the worker bee is having the different morphology because its environment is different, because it is going outside to take the nectar and all and coming and storing them. Similarly, the drone honeybees are also having different function in the different environments, so they are also having the different morphology or phenotype. So in this way we can say this is the phenotypic plasticity according to their different environment. So let's move to the last question of this video. So the 10th question is, according to the optimal foraging theory, if two food items are commonly available and equally abundant, an optimal forager should choose in the item what? So it is telling about the foraging theory and it is written optimal forager. So you should link with the optimal foraging theory. So here the correct option will be option number C. Yes, the forager, that means the one who is going to forage or eat, should choose the item that yields greater net energy. So that means if that foraging organism is using less energy to reach that food and less energy to process that food as compared to the energy which you will be getting from that food, then that is showing the optimal foraging behavior. So that means it will yield greater net energy. So I hope you are able to understand, and that's all in this part of the video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give a like, share it with your friends and subscribe the channel to get further updates.